You tell me you're different. You say you got some things and you're working on. Oh, but I never listen. No, was too busy thinking you're the perfect one. It's such a mystery, cause usually I'm looking for a reason to stay. But who would have believed that here I be and I just can't look away. Oh, you tried to give me a warning, say watch your step before you fall too hard. You tell me I'm crazy, I say not crazy enough, but I'm crazy for you, crazy, crazy about us. And I know that it's true, baby, it may be too much, but I'm crazy for you, crazy, crazy in love. Get if you're thinking you're alone and now you feel. I wanna show you the difference. If you let me, I could show you something real. It's such a mystery, cause usually I'm looking for a reason to stay. Oh, yeah. But who would have believed that here I be and I just can't look away. Oh, you tried to give me a warning, say watch your step before you fall too hard. You tell me I'm crazy, I say not crazy enough, but I'm crazy for you, crazy, crazy about us. And I know that it's true, baby, it may be too much, but I'm crazy for you, crazy, crazy in love. Never giving up, never giving up, never giving up up on you. Never giving up, never giving up, never giving up, never giving up up on you. Never giving up, never giving up, never giving up, never giving up up on you. Never giving up, I'm crazy for you. Never giving up up on you. You tried to give me a warning, say watch your step before you fall too hard. You tell me I'm crazy, I say not crazy enough, but I'm crazy for you, crazy, crazy about us. And I know that it's true, baby, it may be too much, but I'm crazy for you, crazy, crazy in love. Never giving up, never giving up, never giving up, never giving up up on you. Never giving up, never giving up, never giving up, never giving up up on you. Never giving up, never giving up, never giving up, never giving up up on you. Never giving up, never giving up, never giving up, never giving up up on you.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, everybody. It is good to be back with you. It is always good to be here. It is Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier. I'm happy to be with everyone and having a great show. We are going to have fun today. There is a lot of stuff I'm going to be trying to get through, and we have a great interview coming up. As you may have noticed, we were talking about our guest, who will be Shannon Wright. She is an exceptional individual. I know this because I've met her personally at CPAC 2019. I know she's got the Right Way show with Shannon and Mike, which is a morning show program down in the Maryland, Baltimore area. And she's been doing that with her husband, Mike Wright, and they've been doing a great show. And it's very interesting news. It's coming out of Baltimore, where we know there's a lot of troubles and has been trouble for quite some time. But we'll speak about that more in just a few moments. Before we get to that, there is a lot that's going on right now in this country. There's a lot of news that is happening as we speak. And I kind of want to go in order. We got a little bit of breaking news. We're not going to use sound effects today, but I do want to go into something that I saw yesterday, and I want to start off with this. Actually, before I get to that, I do want to thank all my friends at the Belmont Pub in Binghamton and over at the Park Diner, also in Binghamton. If you are in the region, please do drop by. They have great food. They have great drinks. It is a wonderful atmosphere. I recommend both of them. Mind you, they are my friends. This is not a paid advertisement. This is just me talking about my friends and places I enjoy, and I think you will enjoy it as well. That being said, let me get to the meat and potatoes of the show. And first thing I want to talk about really quickly is something that I was going over yesterday. Actually, I saw it yesterday and I started talking about it, and I put up a post, personal. This is my personal message that I was putting out there for people. And I want you to see exactly what I was talking about, because this is about Venezuela. And this is about red flags. And this is about our rights. And I know you hear this all the time. You've heard me say gun control, we got to watch out for that. You've heard me say the red flag laws, they're going to be dangerous. They're going to take away your rights, your freedoms. This is a danger. And you've heard people from the left and the far left, the fringe, saying, no, that's just silly. No one's going to come take your guns, except they're now saying that they're going to take your guns. You have nothing to be afraid of. You having a firearm in America is just about sports shooting and hunting. It has nothing to do with anything important, like defending yourself from the government. Because why would you need to defend yourself from the government? It's America. It's a great government. You don't need to do that. Well, that's not exactly true. In 2012, in Venezuela, according to the news reports that are out there, it's very easy to find. Look up BBC, bbc.com, which is the news, British broadcasting, and they report in 2012, Venezuela, the people, lost the right to have their firearms. And if you're looking at it, they said then, quote, they're killing people every day. This law is important, but they need to do more. They're not doing enough now. End quote. That comes from the BBC article, which was Venezuela bans private gun owners. And this is in 2012. And I want you to think about that a little bit, because that's exactly what you hear today. There's not enough you listen to what they were saying right after the Parkland, Florida shooting. You listen to them in the UNC shooting at the University of North Carolina. You listen to some of these comments and you hear them say the same things over and over again. We're not doing enough. We've got to do something. We have to stop this. I saw an article here in my local newspaper where people were telling me, this is rampant. There's so much more. It's escalating, except it isn't. The facts are, it's consistent. The number of mass shootings, very much consistent. The number of people who die per year is generally consistent. Sadly, and this is not to say that it isn't sad. Doesn't mean to say that we need to stop it. We do. In fact, I was talking about it at the Liberty Weekend, that we need to address this. We have to deal with the root problem, which isn't the firearms. And most importantly, I want to just highlight here is you need to address the fact that government isn't the best savior. They're not just because the government says they will protect you doesn't mean that the government's necessarily going to protect you. Because in 2012, that's what they told Venezuela. And today, and back in October, actually, going back in 2017, we knew that the government of Venezuela was lying because 500 people, actually 560 people were killed by the government and government-approved forces in Venezuela. And those numbers have just gone up and up to the most recent levels. This is why we have a Second Amendment. So that if the government decides that it wants to go door to door killing people that disagree with the government, we can protect ourselves. And I had a great conversation about that when we were talking at the Liberty Weekend at Binghamton University. And I do advise you, look up the video. I know the audio is a little bit low, but we did enhance it. Go and check that out. See for yourself what we had to say about that and how this is essential. Otherwise, we will, like many other nations, follow the path that Venezuela did. Blindly follow the government, and the government will abuse you. It happens time and time and time again. So, that being said, I also want to go on into some breaking news that's going on out there. Some news that just came out, literally just before, maybe about half an hour ago, before the show started. And that is that we were talking about Steve Moore. Steve Moore is withdrawing from consideration for his position with the Fed. So that means that both Herman Cain and Steve Moore have now been both blocked by Democrats from allowing them to move forward on the Fed and make changes there. The thing about Steve Moore withdrawing from consideration, that affects the New York 22nd race. And you got to think about these things. Nothing happens in a vacuum when we're talking about politics, because Steve Moore, he was actually one of the first and primary backers of a gentleman by the name of George Phillips. George Phillips is the first fully declared candidate for the New York 22nd district. A race that's going to be in the top 10 already is projected, already understood to be in the top 10 congressional races of 2020. That's with Anthony Brindisi, who is the current incumbent. He just got elected in 2018. And so Steve Moore was backing George Phillips, and George Phillips is going to challenge Anthony Brindisi. We know that Steve Cornwell, the DA out of Broome County, is also going to be challenging Anthony Brindisi. We know that there may be 3 to 4 other candidates. We're looking at their names. They're going to be coming out very shortly. We're very aware of them. In fact, I know everybody who's in this race. And I've been following the New York 22nd races going back to 2010. So I know all of the people who are involved. I know I've spoken with them all, and hopefully we'll get them all onto the program at some point, especially as we get closer to 2020, especially as people announce their positions more and more. But I think it's really interesting that Steve Moore has now decided that he is out, and will that have an impact in the New York 22nd race, that the number one person backing George Phillips is no longer, he's had a little bit of a tarnish to his star. But when we're thinking about people who are in the races, it would only be fair that if we're looking at Anthony Brindisi, and I want you to, and this is coming from GovTrack itself. So this is a GovTrack article. They track all of the candidates and individuals, and Anthony Brindisi, and looking at his record, and one of the things that's important about the New York 22nd race will be how effective are people. And looking at Anthony Brindisi's track record, kind of sad, because he's done 4 bills, and he hasn't, he's gotten 5 co-sponsors, of which 3 of them showed up this week to support the Suicide Prevention Coordination Act. And that was because he had a meeting with the Veterans Administration Committee, the Veterans Committee, this Monday. And that's when he got the rest of his supporters. He's got 5 co-sponsors. That's it. The bill is dead in the water. And this is the best bill he has, H.R. 2333, Support for Suicide Prevention Coordinators Act. And do I think anything that helps to prevent suicides of our veterans, is that important? Absolutely. I think it's a very important bill. It's worth reading, but it says something when nobody, not even Democrats, are willing to support Anthony Brindisi. And for those who've been following me for years, this brings us back to what I said about Richard Hanna, who used to be a representative for New York 22nd. It's not worth having a member of Congress who is ineffective in their job. If they can't get support, if people won't back their bills, it doesn't matter how good the bill is, they're useless. They're not doing their job. When you see 5 members of Congress, only 5 members of Congress are willing to back a bill meant to help the veterans who are considering suicide and suicide prevention overall. Are you kidding me? There's over 50 members of Congress that are former military. They're veterans. And you're saying that you can only get 5 of those individuals to back a bill to save lives? Something is wrong. That means something's wrong. That means that even if the bill was absolutely horribly written, you can get more than 5 people to back that. There are more than 5 veterans who are willing to say to their constituents, I want to stop suicides of vets. That's just a fact. That's very simple and easy. I don't care. It doesn't matter if the bill's bad and it would never pass. You can get more than 5 people to back that bill. There are more than 5 people who are looking to get reelected in 2020. And if for no other reason than empty politics, you can't tell me that out of 50 of those members of Congress, they're all up for reelection in 2020 and they're not willing to back your bill that will make them look good with veterans. Something is wrong. So while George Phillips is having a problem with the 2020 race, potentially, although he is the first challenger, Anthony Brindisi is doing himself no favors. He's ineffective. And I say that because he has no support. When the best you can do is get 5 people, and the prognosis from GovTrack is that you have a 4% chance of getting your bill passed, and it's been out there for over a month, guess what? You're not doing your job. You're ineffective. You're useless. You literally could put a rubber stamp on the chair and it would have the same impact as having Anthony Brindisi in the office. And that's a problem with and we can find others. There are over 535 members of Congress. We can find more than just Anthony Brindisi, who is completely ineffective, that are unable to pass a bill, that get nothing done. Heck, we have members who are running for Congress who are completely, Beto O'Rourke, as an example, completely ineffective, useless. Beto is just a joke. He named a hospital, post office, excuse me. He named a post office. That's all he did. He named a post office. He lost to the guy who lost to Trump. That's his claim to fame. And a fake Hispanic name. His name is Robert, not Beto. That's it. And yet he's running for Congress, for the presidency in 2020. So, yes, we can point to many people in Congress who are ineffective and useless. And whenever we see those people, I have to say, let's put some sunlight on them. Let's point out how ineffective they are, how useless they are, and let's not reelect them. Because even if we get someone else who's bad, let's keep going until we get someone who's actually good. someone who can actually do the job. And I know I've known Anthony for about 7 years now, and I'm not picking on Anthony because of a personal thing. This isn't political. This is his record. The record says no one cares. Anthony Brindisi is no one is Democrats are not supporting Anthony Brindisi. That is a problem. When you are looking for your representative to go out there and back your community to get in funding, even if it's pork barrel funding, whatever you want to call it, people count on that. And what confidence can you have when no one cares what he is doing? When no one is willing to back him? When he has no friends in Congress? Even his own party has no friendship for him. Gee, I have to say, there may be a problem there. But that's just me. You may disagree, and that's perfectly okay. There was Beto O'Rourke. Oh, and there was... I had another image I wanted to show about Beto O'Rourke. It seems that Beto O'Rourke has come out and he's sending back money, and maybe I can find it. I'm pretty sure I have it here. And so I'm going to try and find it before we get to the break, because he drove me nuts. Beto O'Rourke, it seems, is returning money to some of his donors, but he's willing to take part of the money. So he's giving back all but $200. If you happen to be a large company, oil and gas, he's going to give back all of the money you've donated to him, except $200. So Beto O'Rourke has principles up to a point. He has a limit. He has a limit on that. His principles go only so far, because he's still taking the money. He just won't take all the money. So I don't even know how to evaluate that. I don't know what that means. And I have an image for that, and hopefully I'll have to grab it during the break. And this way you'll be able to see what I'm talking about here, because I had an image. I saved it just for this reason. And of course, I don't have it with me at this second. So I apologize for that. But I will get it. In fact, since I can't find it, and that was part of my last bit, what I will say is we're going to be talking in the break at 1:30. We're going to be talking with a really great person, Shannon Wright. She's got a program she's been doing for years now, which is called The Right Way with Shannon and Mike. This is their program where they go and they do a morning show. It's with SHR Media. You can check that out. It is available on SoundCloud as well. And they've been doing that for a long time. I know they were with me down at CPAC 2019. Oops, I keep getting that wrong. They were with me down at CPAC 2019. We had a great time there. They had a lot of guests. They've been doing this for a while. Shannon, by the way, is more than just a morning show host, though. She is a prominent figure in the Maryland politics, involved with black Republicans and black conservatives in Maryland politics, as well as the Republican Party itself. And we're going to talk with her a little bit about that and all of the things that are happening down in Chicago right now, which are incredibly troubling. I mean, not Chicago, Baltimore, with the mayor, with yet another mayor who is in massive trouble in Baltimore. Talking about Baltimore and the fact that they have 5.3% unemployment, which is way higher than the rest of the nation. They have had 87 people killed in gun homicides since the beginning of this year, which is right behind Chicago. 24% poverty, 4,000 people homeless. In a city that has 611,000 people, 64% black. You have to ask yourself, and I will ask Shannon, how is that going to be fixed? Their mayor, Mayor Pugh, obviously is not getting the job done. How can we get this fixed? She's going to resign today, according to most news outlets. How can we improve this? Well, that's a lot of things to talk about, but what we'll do first is we're going to take a quick break. Then we'll come back, and I should have that image for Beto, and then we'll go right into our conversation with Shannon. So we'll be right back.
Sometimes a man is wrong. Oh, she took 5 steps. Oh, and she was stopped. Oh, it's one of those times. Oh, it's one of those times. She said, I know you ain't got a cheating heart. Oh, your love is true. You just gotta. She never gonna. Oh, it's one of those times. Oh, it's one of those times. It's one of those times. Oh, it's one of those times. Oh, that woman, she don't mean a thing. She just had eyes of fire in a heart so cold. One touch can drop. Oh, it's one of those times. Oh, it's one of those times.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Can you believe it? We're actually pretty much on time today. It never happens like that. And I want to take a moment. Now, as I mentioned before the break, I promised that I would show this, and shame on Beto O'Rourke. What you'll see is this is an article by Politico, came out in the middle of the night last night. O'Rourke signs no fossil fuel money pledge. But if you look at the article, he says that he's not going to accept money from anyone who has any of the fossil fuel companies, except he is. He takes $200. So he has no principles. Because if he was principled, he would give all the money back. If he had absolutely no idea what he was doing, he would just give all the money back. But instead, he wants to make people believe he has some kind of principle, and he's taking some of the money and giving the rest back, which I think is very duplicitous. But with that said, I want to come back to our guest who is here with us now, and that is Shannon Wright of The Right Way. Shannon, can you hear me all right there?
I can. Thank you.
Oh, fantastic. And you're coming through absolutely perfectly on our end. Now, I've mentioned it before for people who are watching this and listening in. We wanted to talk about where is it? There. Oh, I just had your image. I'm sorry. I'm trying to play with my system on the photos. But you've got a morning show program with SHR Media, and where you and your husband Mike are doing a morning show. Is that right?
It absolutely is. We start folks off in the morning from 7 to 9 a.m. and try to provide a little news and information, as well as a little spiritual grounding and entertainment to get folks off on a good foot.
No, and that's a fantastic thing to do. And that's always tough to be the first people up in the morning. I can imagine that can be a little difficult. A lot of coffee there, huh? Do you guys drink a lot of coffee during the show?
Well, for me, the day has to start with coffee. Absolutely.
That's what I would imagine, because it's like that for me as well. But that's not the only thing that we wanted to talk about, because I know the show is really great and you've been doing it for a long time. And for people who don't know, as I mentioned, we've met before over at CPAC in 2019, and we were covering that all 4 days. And,
yes.
And God help me, I mean, I was getting up at 5 a.m. to be there on time. What time were you guys getting up to get there?
Well, for us, it usually takes about an hour to really get set and situated, see what may have transpired in the news overnight that we may have missed, and just kind of do a last minute briefing and order the stories that we're going to cover, and then we're live at 7:01.
Wow, that's an early start to the day. It definitely
is.
But I know that's not the only thing that you wind up doing, because you're also involved in politics. You're part of the Maryland political machine. Am I correct?
I am. I am the former vice chair of the Maryland State Republican Party. I am the current and first female chair of the Baltimore City Republican Central Committee and the Maryland chair of the Black Republican Council.
Wow. That is a huge series of things. I mean, that's got to keep you busy all day long, I would imagine.
It does. And for your listeners, anyone that knows anything about Baltimore right now, it keeps me on my toes a little bit more than usual.
Well, yeah. Considering what's going on in Baltimore right now, I mean, there are just, and it's not like Baltimore doesn't have its own share of scandals, but you guys have a lot. I mean, there's the drugs, the scandal about the books. Mayor Pugh is expected to be resigning at any moment. Is that right?
It's been, today I think is day 32 of her absence.
Just gone.
It's been an interesting time. our state our state constitution obviously outlines how the state functions, and our city charter outlines how the city functions. So the president of the city council has stepped up to be the acting mayor. So there is a person in City Hall in that office, but that person, there have been questions coming out about recently to see how involved he's been in some of the things that have happened with the mayor. So we are very much a city in turmoil and flux at the moment.
Well, that's a big problem,
It
considering
is.
I was just looking at research before I got here to do the show, and I saw that Baltimore, there's been 87 homicides with firearms, and in total, just all around, there's been 93 in the city since the beginning of this year. And considering the problems we see with the mayor and the lack of a mayor, I would only think that would have to contribute to that. Go ahead.
I would like to say that it has contributed to it, but in all honesty, Baltimore specifically, has had a problem with its homicide rate for some years. Specifically, I would say in the last 4 years or so, it's been the numbers have been growing exponentially. Honestly, we've had a rather large turnover in leadership of our police department. When we get officers in, there's a big problem of retention. There's a problem of corruption, and the homicide rate has been off the chart for some time. We per person, or how they calculate those rates per your population. Unfortunately, we're in the top 5 in the country for the worst homicide rates, and that's unacceptable. There's people require, whether they agree to it or not, people require strength and stability in their leadership to feel that the ethics and the mores that we're raised with, whether directly or indirectly, that we can actually live by those because we're in a place where we're safe. We're in a place where there are certain expectations of safety and security to be able to function like a city should. And in Baltimore right now, that's not there.
No, it definitely isn't. And there is a long-term trend. You're right. You're right there with Chicago in many of these numbers. 24% poverty. I mean, 4,000 people who are homeless as of 2011. So all of this has been coming together, and obviously leadership is needed for Baltimore. And I was speaking with you. I saw recently you have an answer for that. Is that right?
I do. After some careful consideration and a lot of conversations with my husband and my family, I've decided to run for mayor of Baltimore.
Now, that's a big deal.
It is.
That's got to be tough. Have you? I know you've run for races before. You've had some experience in running for an election and being elected in the positions that you have now. But mayor is kind of a step up. What brought you to that decision?
Well, in 2016, I ran for city council president, which is also a citywide office. There are 3 citywide offices in Baltimore: comptroller, city council president, and mayor. Most of the financial decisions are made through the Board of Estimates, and the Board of Estimates is comprised of the city council president, the comptroller, and the mayor, plus 2 designees that the mayor can appoint. There have been issues for quite some time in Baltimore with questions of fiscal responsibility, or more to the point, evidence of fiscal irresponsibility, that have led to some shortfalls in some of the programming needs of the city. And when I ran for city council president in 2016, 2016 was a challenging year. I won my primary, but I did not win the general election. And in winning my primary and going to the general election, I had the highest vote count of any Republican in the city of Baltimore for a citywide race in over 20 years.
Wow.
And I talked to folks around me and I said, okay, we've got to really look at this thing. We've got to really see, not just spew politics, but understand policy and how those policies can benefit the people in this city. And we're going to take some time and we're going to do this again and we're going to get it right. And we're going to get it out there in a way that people in the city can hear it and it can resonate and understand how it will positively impact their lives. Now, we've had these conversations and have been planning for this before all of this chaos happened with our current mayor. Um, so this isn't I woke up in the morning and decided, hey, I'm going to run for mayor. Now, this is something that we've really put some thought and some planning into. I've spoken to uh, our state party chair and executive directors. I've spoken to the members of my central committee and some other folks outside of my family as well, and including my family to really make sure that we see all of the things that we really need to take into account to be able to run this race through this cycle in the way that best benefits the city of Baltimore. People need to understand that they have options, that they're not locked into one frame of mind, one school of thought, and that doing that for so many years is what has greatly attributed to the downturn and the downslide of the city of Baltimore, and we want to fix that.
No, I understand that completely. That is something else. I mean, I was looking over some of the unemployment rate numbers, and
Hmm.
consistently we've seen since 1990 that Baltimore has underperformed versus the rest of the nation. And I know for a fact that when I was doing the research, we haven't seen a Republican as mayor of Baltimore since 1967. And we see the result of that. I mean, look at where the
Absolutely.
status of the city is, kind of like Chicago, kind of like look in New York State, where we see a predominance and a historic trend of just one party rule, which winds up destroying many of the areas. So that change is important. And the fact that you got so many votes, the most in 20 years, really says something there. So let me ask you, how do you think, if you become mayor of Baltimore, how would you address, say, as an example, I know we don't have a lot of time, but poverty? How would you look towards that?
Well, I think we've got to do two things to address poverty. Um, no, let me tweak that a little bit. We need to do two things to address poverty in a sustainable way, to reduce poverty and be able to sustain that reduction. We have to do something, and a series of somethings actually, that make Baltimore a viable economic option for businesses to locate to. Now, in order to want to do that, folks have to know that it's safe. So we have to do something to really get our crime numbers down. And then we have to do something that creates a climate of economic growth. We want to do we want to be that city that attracts technology innovation. We want to be that city that has multiple incubators around the city where it's become that oasis of new thought and paradigms of thought that can actually turn around a lot of our urban areas and help them to become the growth centers that they once were. Baltimore has a lot of issues and problems, but Baltimore is not the only city with a lot of issues and problems. And if we can take a stand here and say no more right here in Baltimore and turn some things around so that this city has the chance to be what it once was, I believe that this can be that clarion call that gives hope to other cities across the country.
I think it can definitely be that. If Baltimore turns itself around, a lot of cities will take notice because it shows that there is a better way forward than what we're seeing in Chicago and what's been done so far.
Absolutely.
I know we don't have. Actually, we're just about out of time, huh? I know you've with the election, also with your show and all the other things that you're doing. I know we didn't have a lot of time today. It goes by so fast, doesn't it? It always goes by so fast.
I
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, time is an interesting thing. The city of Baltimore doesn't have much time. There's a critical mass point where once you hit it, it's very hard to turn the city around. Um, so that is one of the reasons why we are determined that this is the cycle that we begin to make a political change in Baltimore City so that we can make the policy changes necessary for Baltimore City, and more importantly, not just the city, but for the residents that make up this city.
Well, I think that's an excellent and important way to look forward. And I want to get you back on the show when we can get, I would love to have a good half hour with you and just go through some of the policy issues that you're looking to address.
I would love to do that.
Okay, then we're definitely going to have you back during this cycle. Do you know, while I've been on, do you know if Mayor Pugh has already resigned yet?
Oh, excuse me. There is a press conference scheduled for this afternoon. I don't think that has transpired yet, but it will be.
Okay.
It will be happening this afternoon, and there's speculation. There have been at least 3 in the last week or so where her lawyer has said, I'm going to have a statement, I'm going to have a statement, and, people seem to think that it's that statement. We may get that today, and it is my thought process that it will be a resignation statement. I don't know of many jobs that you can have where you can be gone without communication for 32 days and still expect to, 1, be able to walk back in, and 2, to have the faith and the belief of those that you work with and work for that you're still able to do the job.
No, I agree with you. I can't think of any job other than in politics where even that can even be a conversation. But
That's true.
well, we're going to look at that for today, and we're definitely going to follow this up, and we definitely want to have you back on the show as soon as possible. But I'll let you go now, and for everyone who's staying, please stay on the show. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back with the end of the show.
Thank you again for having me.
Always, absolutely.
If I could, one last thing.
Yes.
For your listeners, if you're inclined to want to hear more of what's going on in Baltimore or to be of assistance in this campaign, please reach out to me at writeformaryland.com. That's the name of the website. And we want to do this without big corporate support. We want to do this one person at a time. So we're asking folks to make a pledge and a commitment of $20 a month for this campaign cycle. And if you'd be so kind to go to writeformaryland.com and click on those buttons there, your support would be greatly appreciated.
Writeformaryland.com. Absolutely. And I will make sure that we get a link to that on the site, on the program, and in the links of the podcast, so everyone will be able to see that as well. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Some people live for the fortune. Some people live just for the fame.
All right, everybody, and I thank you for joining us back here at the ever popular No Soundbites Allowed podcast. We are on the Exceptional Conservative Network. We are having a busy show trying to get so much information in, and we want to thank our special guest who is just on with us, Shannon Wright, who is going to be running for the mayor of Baltimore. And we expect that the current mayor, Mayor Pugh, is going to be resigning most likely today, May 2nd. So this is a big deal, and we see that she's come to that decision, and she's going to be available. And you can go to her website, which is being updated as we speak, which is the Right for Maryland. That is WRIGHT for Maryland. Please check out that site as it's updated with the latest information about the race for for Baltimore mayor, and that will give you more information there. Obviously, I again want to make sure that I did show the image. Earlier, I had talked about it. I know I went over it very briefly, but we have a moment here. Politico. The article was O'Rourke signs, quote, no fossil fuel money, quote, pledge, returns donations, except he didn't return the donations. He did not. What we saw Beto O'Rourke do is he is keeping $200 from every single one of them. And I want to emphasize that so much because it is the worst kind of trickery that is being done. It sounds like he's got a principle that he's willing to stand against fossil fuel companies, except he isn't. He's taking the money. It's one thing if he stays true to his word and doesn't accept the money and returns it all. Good for him, fantastic. Except he's playing both worlds. He's giving back some of the money and he's claiming that he's giving it away. So he's playing both sides. He's manipulating the public, and he needs to be called out for that. And that's why we give him the Game of Thrones shame on Beto O'Rourke, Robert O'Rourke. You're not a Hispanic, so he is Robert O'Rourke. And shame on you, Game of Thrones, shame on you for deceiving the public in this manner and trying to get the best of both worlds. It's insulting. It's bad. And I want to call him out on that. And Politico for allowing him to do that in their headline and not highlighting specifically that he's keeping the money. He didn't return it. The pledge is useless because he's keeping the money. And this is something we need to stay on top of in our 2020 races, in the elections. Let's make sure we keep all of our politicians honest. Okay? When we hear politicians say that they're doing a great job, like Anthony Brindisi, and no one is supporting them, it doesn't matter if you say that every time you go on the radio, I'm doing such a great job. I have this great idea. If no one is there supporting you in Congress, it's the same thing as if a tree fell down in the forest. Did it make any noise? Who cares, because no one's there. I'm not saying that H.R. 2333, Support for Suicide Prevention Coordination Act, I'm not saying it's a bad bill. I'm not saying that the number one thing that Anthony Brindisi is known for and speaks about, the Transparency for Cable Consumers Act, H.R. 1555, I'm not saying that it's not a good bill. I am saying that it's absolutely meaningless because no one is supporting it. It's going nowhere. It is dead in the water. And if it is going nowhere and no one is supporting it, it doesn't matter if it's gold. If it said that it was going to give every American a bar of gold, it wouldn't matter because no one's listening to it, no one's read it, no one supports it. So we need to hold our politicians to the standard of, are they effective? Are they honest? Is anything happening that is a benefit to the public? We really have to ask these things. And that's why when we ask them in Baltimore, and we have to ask that question there, how can we help Baltimore? Because Baltimore needs help. There is no question on that. Baltimore needs help. We know this because without any supervision, without anyone there, because the mayor Mayor Pugh is ineffective, we get 93 homicides. We get a bad economic situation. So that's why it's so important to make sure we know what's really going on. And maybe it's time for a change in some of these cases. But I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you enjoyed the interview, and we will have Shannon Wright back on the program talking about the race in Baltimore. Hopefully we'll be able to speak to Maj Toure in the near term, talking about Philadelphia and his race and many other races throughout 2019, 2020 as well. But you can always come to the program. This is the No Soundbites Allowed podcast. We are on the Exceptional Conservative Network, the TECN TV. We are on Tuesdays, Thursdays at 1 p.m., on Saturdays from 12 to noon. You can reach us through Twitter at MV Consult. You can go to Facebook at the Voss Political Commentary page. Leave us messages. Tell us what's going on. Of course, and people always forget, look up there. You can call in during the show. Not when we have someone, not when we have an interview going on, but otherwise you can call us at 607-242-9247 and speak with us live on the show. We enjoy that as well. But we look forward to hearing everybody in the near term. We hope that you're going to have a great week, and we're looking forward to seeing you on Saturday at 12 noon. And until then, check us out on YouTube, catch up on some of the shows, and we'll talk to you again very soon.